Are you on Stock Twits at all?
Welcome aboard, everyone. We're back with another live show, IrixGuy's live show. Now, tonight in the studio, we have Hybrid Life. And Hybrid Life is going to, actually, I'm going to go ahead and flip over here. We're going to get Hybrid Life on the screen. And Hybrid Life, I know everybody wants us to hear about yourself. Tell us about yourself. What are your interests? And just tell us whatever.
Yeah, I think to keep it short, my interest right now is the economy, just because there's so much stuff going on. So right now I'm really focused on just learning more about stocks, some of the government regulations that they're trying to put into place, and kind of figure out what is right and what is wrong, because there's so much volatility in the market right now. Can you see me?
Yeah, everybody can see. Can everybody see Hybrid Life here on the live stream? Jake, I know you're here. Jake, Maya, McKenna, can you see Hybrid Life? Let's see. Yeah, I know they can hear us and see us.
Oh, so, perfect. Yeah. So anyway, those are my main interests right now. Just kind of with the stock market. Obviously, I'm in school for medicine, but that gets so old and so burnt out. So as a hobby, investing in all different types of things and learning about the economy. I think those are the biggest things. Obviously, watches is a huge part in investing and a hobby that I like to do. As you know, right now in the watch world, some of these watches can be such great investments. It's just ridiculous. So I think that's kind of all I want to say about myself for now. I'll leave the rest of it to my channel that I need to start ASAP. I mean, I've been saying this for a year or two, but I think now's the time. So let's get started.
Oh, actually, we just got a viewer said they can only see. Oh, I stand corrected. IrixGuy was full screen. There's Hybrid Life. There's Hybrid Life that was just speaking. Sorry, that was my fault, my studio crew's fault. So Hybrid Life, speaking of watches, before we get into this, what's on the wrist today? Let's do a wristwatch check.
Yeah, so I have a Rolex Submariner 16610 LN. So it's a 2005. I took the steel bracelet off, and I have a rubber B bracelet on there. So rubber B, I found that out with Kevin O'Leary on one of his YouTube videos. He has all of these watches, and he wears red bands.
Yeah,
some of them are rubber, some of them are leather. I didn't know that you could have a non-factory rubber band on the subs. You see them on like the Yacht Masters, you see them on the Daytonas, but I never really saw anybody wear one with a sub until I saw Kevin O'Leary. And then once he said how great it was, he kind of had tons of praise for this company. I went and got one. And, I put it on an older sub for now, just because I don't really want to mess with a lot of my more expensive Rolexes, just because of the value. I think you can understand that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
So that's what I'm wearing today. As I make more videos, I'm going to break out some more watches. I have a pretty good collection for my age. And it's crazy how much some of these watches are going up in value. I mean, especially I'm getting them at retail price. I might be waiting 6 months to a year on each watch, but if you play the waiting game right and build a good reputation with your authorized dealers, I mean, gosh, you can have a great portfolio in a little bit amount of time. So, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously you're not a flipper, because the flippers, as we all know, with the Rolex ADs, they're prohibiting those people from buying, additional references. So it's kind of
yeah, exactly. When it comes to flipping, I think I've been suspected just because of my age. I'm a little bit young for at least where I live, for people buying all these Rolex Submariner models. But now they know me so well that they understand. And I walk in there and I'll have a different Submariner on my wrist, or a GMT, or whatever the case may be, or they're like, oh yeah, he's not flipping them. I did sell my Sea Dweller 50th anniversary just because, I kind of outgrew the watch. It didn't fit me anymore. I like the smaller size. I thought the Sea Dweller is just a little bit too big from what I'm used to. So I did sell that. I didn't really make much money on it, and maybe $1,000. I don't know.
What was that? The 40? Was it a 44 or a 40?
I think it's a 43.
Yeah. Was that the one that had the date, but it didn't have the Cyclops?
It had the date and the Cyclops.
Oh, it did.
So it's the 50th anniversary, and it had the red lettering.
Oh, the red sea dweller. Yeah.
Yep. You know, that one's not that high off of retail. I think I maybe paid like 11 or 12 for it after tax. Maybe sold it for 13 max. I can't remember, but I think even now I was just looking on like Watch Patrol. You can get them for 12,900, 13,000 all day. So it's interesting because they look so similar to the sub. If I wore it on my wrist and you weren't like a huge collector, you probably wouldn't know the difference. So I'm curious to what is driving this market in the specific watches. Do you have any idea of why the market is sky high in some of these particular models?
Well, and the thing is, it's pretty much everything, including the Oyster Perpetual line. And I've speculated. I mean, I've been in the wristwatch. I'm older, so I've been in the wristwatch game for a long time. And I remember when you could go to the gray market and you could buy Rolex for 25, 35% discount off of retail. But obviously recently we've seen these radical increases. I mean, even a sub $5,000 Oyster Perpetual now is trading at, the 114, is it 114600 or 114300, the 39 millimeter white dial Oyster Perpetual? That's trading at close to 10 grand now.
Wow.
I mean, it's just an
That's
OP.
Incredible.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I don't really know what's driving it. I think, Rolex, they're excellent marketers, the Hans Willdorf Foundation. And it's interesting to speculate. And I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, well, the ADs, the authorized dealers are just selling stock out of the back doors because they know if they do that, they can make a huge, huge profit. But obviously, Rolex would not allow their authorized dealers to do that. As far as the perceived shortage, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. I mean, my thoughts are that, it's one of those situations where the prices have continued to go up, and whatever it is, whatever perceived commodity it is, whether it's a wristwatch, a piece of gold, a piece of silver, some sort of collectible, not so much nowadays as it was in the past, collectible baseball cards, that sort of stuff. What's driving it? And I think there's just a lot of people chasing, and there's such a crazy chase right now that it's just, I mean, the prices are going ballistic. I think the bubble's going to burst. I mean, it's got to. What do you think?
I thought that about a year ago. I thought the bubble was going to burst, and I was like, gosh, I sell some of these for a profit. And the way that the Fed has been printing money, see, I'm a big believer, and I'm going to go off on sidetrack a little bit, but it's relevant to what we're talking about as far as everything going sky high in value. So with the Fed printing, a lot of the Fed monetary policy that's going on right now with all this printing of money, keeping interest rates low, buying everything in the repo market, spending hundreds of billions of dollars a month, it's driving up assets. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's priced in dollars, it's going up. I mean, you look at gas, you look at the only things that are interesting, and I'll maybe talk about this on another show, maybe my own. The metals manipulation. I think the metals, as far as gold and silver, should be way higher than what it is. I think it's getting manipulated by the big banks. But you see, like, look at the used car market, the watch market. Everyone has money because it's cheap right now, and it's driving up prices. And supply is so much lower than what demand is because everyone has all these stimulus checks, minimum wage is going up. I can talk about this for a long time, but in short, there's so much money out there and so many people have more money than ever. And there's not as many there's the same amount of Rolexes. The price is going to go up on all these things. So you really see it in the watch market. It's crazy. And will the Fed change their policy? I mean, I know a lot of analysts say, the Feds are going to taper. They're going to start raising interest rates. But it seems at every meeting, they have an excuse not to taper and not to raise interest rates. I think they're kicking the can down the road. And I think that this is never going to end, and it's going to result in a currency crisis. And meaning by that is the dollar is going to fall. They're going to let the dollar collapse because they can never repay this debt. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, while our current president is still in office, that monetary policy is not going to change. If it does, it's going to be so minute, it's not even going to make a difference. It's just all going to be noise. So I expect higher. And for how long, I don't know. I say the next 2 to 3 years is just going to keep going up. If you asked me this last year, I would have said the market would have crashed by now. But now it's a whole nother playbook. So
yeah,
that's kind of my opinion.
I'm with you. I felt that last year that that this couldn't continue. And I mean, now we're seeing. I mean, now it's not a matter of my thoughts were in line with yours. Okay, this is going to crash. And, obviously it wasn't driven just by the virus that came through in 2020, because we were already seeing the drastic price increase of the Rolex references, heading into 2020. I think that may have heightened it a little bit. And the reason being is that people were at home and they were researching, and, they didn't have all the commuting expenses and the typical day-to-day expenses. So a lot of new people probably became fascinated with the wristwatch collection hobby. And we've got a question from a viewer here. Let's see. First of all, a very private gentleman says, "Good stream. Appreciate that, very private gentleman. Welcome aboard." And then Brad Allen says, "Hey guys, thoughts on the Air King 116-900? That's the new Air King, isn't it? The one with the funky green dial. 116900. I think it is. Let's pull it up. We'll pull it up on our stream here. Let's see. We're heading on over to chrono24.com, and we're going to pull up the 116900. Let's see.
I like that watch. Yeah, I like the green hand on that. It says Rolex in green.
Yeah, and green is always historically a significant color for Rolex. Even the GMT Master 2 that was discontinued from several years ago, it had the green hand, and it wasn't really that loved of a piece until it was discontinued. And it's like every other Rolex, the price has really gone up. Yeah. So this is the one we were thinking about, with the green, Rolex green with the Rolex crown in yellow. So thoughts about this Hybrid Life? I want to hear yours too. I'm going to throw in a few thoughts. First of all, Air King historically has kind of been the dog of the range. It was kind of like in the past, it was like the Oyster Perpetual, the OP. It was kind of like, well, I can't really afford a Rolex, but I'm going to get a Rolex anyway. So it was kind of like OP or Air King. But I think the stigma's kind of changed with this new Air King. I mean, it's a larger case size, very similar in design to the Milgauss as far as the case is concerned. But the dial, love it or hate it. I mean, it's a direction that Air King has not been historically. I mean, you got all these colors, you got these funky fonts, different sizes. One thing worth mentioning, though, is that you do have, unlike a GMT or a Submariner or a Daytona, you've just got this stainless steel bezel. That's going to show scratches. So if you're someone that, gets offended when you get a scratch on your sunglasses and or your, any other thing, I mean, that's something to consider. What are your thoughts, Hybrid Life?
Yeah, so looking at it closely, I like the green on the watch. I think that's really cool. I think it's a dress watch more so than a casual watch. Personally, for me, I'd wear it more dressy. The one thing I don't like, and this is a subjective thing with my taste, is the dial. I don't like the 50, the 55, the 25, the 35. I think that's a little bit odd to me, just because it's foreign. I'm not used to it. I probably could get used to it though. I didn't even know Rolex did that, so I'm here on this watch.
It's definitely. I would go to say it's probably the wildest. It's almost like somebody from Tudor was having lunch with one of the guys from Rolex and said, "Hey, why don't we try something different?" and they're like, "Okay, well, we need to use green because green is a significant Rolex color. We need to have something that's not cookie cutter like all of it. And that's the thing about Rolex. They've always kept that timeless look, and that's been in their favor. But I think, like all Rolex sports, I think this is going to become a future classic just because it's kind of the first of breed. And let's see, we got some questions in here. We've got, let's see, Brad Henderson, welcome aboard. Tech for your needs. Hello, folks. Jake says, I have a military grade watch from the Canadian Army. Very cool. Trevor says, that's a nice looking watch, Brad Allen. Stunning hard. Let's see. Let's scroll down here. Hybrid Life, of course. Hybrid Life is asking, and Hybrid Life is the studio guest tonight, by the way, if you didn't already know that, if you're just tuning in. And he says, Hybrid Life says, ask any questions about stocks or the economy. So, stocks, economy, watches, you name it. That's what we're here to talk about. And Brad Allen says, I love the fact that it's an oddball, talking about the Air King. A very private gentleman. Air King is the cockpit dial to the Bloodhound land speed car. Yes. Question mark. What do you think about that?
Bloodhound land speed car. I'm not familiar with that. Are you?
No, that's why I tossed it your way. I didn't know what he was talking about. So
I'm reading Seeslaw and Fun's question. Do y'all have any good recommendations for healthy snacks?
I bet you do.
With me, I'm big into fasting, so I'm a believer of I kind of eat what is readily available. So I try to stay away from a lot of sugars, stuff like that. I do eat fruit, so that's fructose, obviously. Added sugars is what I try to stay away from. I usually try to fast for 18 hours, being I'm in the hospital a lot on my feet or I'm studying. I usually can get by with even sometimes not eating for 20 hours. So sometimes I'll do a 20 hour fast, and then I'll have a 4-hour feeding window. And during that window, I'll eat, I'll have Chipotle, I'll grill a steak. I'll have like 5 apples. I eat a lot during that window because I work out and I try to maintain my weight. But for those of you guys that have never tried fasting, try it out and get past the 5-day. There's going to be a 5-day feeling where you feel weird. You're going to have lightheadedness. You're going to feel shaky. But once you get past that and stop feeling hungry, you're going to have so much mental acuity and you're going to have so much energy. You will literally be shocked. And I read countless studies, and I know tons of other doctors at Mayo that fast. And, the benefits are absolutely amazing, not only short term, but long term. Tons of research on it. So I suggest fasting. So I'm not a big component on, I need to eat this because it's healthy. I just eat whatever I want for the most part. Just try to stay away from junk food and eat within my feeding window, and I'm usually good. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, fruit's okay. It does have sugar, but, obviously it's the added sugars that are really the killer, And I've never fasted, but I do, for the most part, I try to eat as healthy as I can. I mean, tonight, wife and daughter and I, we had air fried salmon and we had some, sweet potatoes, all natural, fresh fish, fresh produce. So we try to stay away from the fast food and I wouldn't say I'm super healthy, but working out, walking every day, hiking, cycling. I mean, that's important, especially as you get older.
For sure.
That's
exercise.
Yeah. I was just saying when I guess it's probably when you hit about 30, 35, you really start to notice a big difference. And I know you haven't hit that yet, but staying active while you're younger is so important, because then when you get older, I mean, you're already conditioned to live that way, and you'll continue to live that way, even though your body's older.
I'm reading. Yeah, I agree 100%. I'm trying to read all these questions. We got a lot of questions.
We got a good
here.
one. Yeah, I've got. Here's one I wanted to. Don Keyballs. He said, Don says, I need to know if this watch picks up the mamas. I don't think the Air King would pick up the mamas. What do you think?
I think it's how you wear it. I think if you have enough swag and you have enough confidence, you can pick up any mama watch or no watch. G-Shock or Rolex, doesn't matter. So I think if you play your cards right and you wear that Air King, you'll have 10s to your left and 10s to your right. So get after it.
Well, and I think you're spot on. It's about the swag, but let's say that somebody had no swag. I think the Air King would be a bad choice. I would go with the solid gold Submariner because, every mama knows what a Submariner is. And when it's solid gold, they're like, man, that guy's got money. I think that would be the ultimate, picking up the mama watch. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 95% of the girls my age or around my age group, 20s, they have no idea what my Rolex is. No idea. They could give a shit less. Sorry
Really?
for swearing. They could
I
give a
don't
crap
know.
less, So older women probably, but for the younger women, they don't care.
That's interesting. See, I never would have known that because I'm over 40. Um, so that is really interesting because when I was growing up, everybody knew if they only knew one watch, they knew what a Rolex Submariner was, even if they didn't know watches. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Let me see here. So after that, we say good day from Sydney, Australia. That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Good
Brad.
day, mate. What do y'all think of the eviction moratorium? First of all, I want to preface by saying any investment stuff I talk about, it's all for entertainment purposes. I'm not, a banker or anything like that. Hedge fund manager, maybe one day, but not right now. So what I think about the eviction moratorium, first of all, I think that whole eviction, or you couldn't evict people. So I guess eviction moratorium, I think that shouldn't have happened. I think that's just more government programs to help people, but really it's hurting them long term because they're going from, getting all this money that they should be paying rent for, and they're wasting it. Well, and this is a bell curve here. There's always specific cases on both ends, but the majority of people that I know from empirical evidence is that people that aren't paying rent, they're spending it on other goods and services they don't need. Because they're getting the stimulus checks, they're not paying rent with it. Okay, and they're creating bad rapport with their landlords. So when this moratorium just ended, I think it ended Friday or something like that, they're going to get kicked out of their house, right? But now they're going to have no money and no home when they should have just been having a good rapport with their landlord, trying to pay the bills. And if they had trouble paying with their landlord, say, hey, I only have $500 this month. It's tough times. As a landlord, I would have been like, yeah, no problem. At least you're trying. But it's caused, and not only this, I think indirectly it caused a big reason for the housing market to go up as high as it did is because the demand is so high and supply is so low because nobody can leave their houses that should be getting evicted. So there's no homes for rent. So it's causing extremely high rentals. And in tandem, that's a part of the reason why very, very few homes are available to buy. There's obviously other reasons, but what's your thoughts on that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, and to kind of piggyback off of what you said, I think the whole thing with people receiving these stimulus checks, and my perception is that a lot of people received them and they just looked at it as free money. They didn't think, okay, well, maybe I ought to put this aside, maybe I ought to invest this, maybe I ought to do something intelligent with it. But you know what? I just saw this ad on Facebook, and they've got 95-inch TVs for $500 off. I mean, it's ridiculous to have to say it like that, but I think it's it's one of those deals where nobody's experienced stimulus checks before. I know I haven't in my lifetime. I know you haven't either. It's a new thing, and people didn't know how to handle it. And it was, I'm a firm believer that if you're using something, whether it's a service, whether it's something that you're purchasing, if it's yours or you're claiming rights to it, you need to be financially responsible for making those payments. For don't live above your means.
Yeah, I think if anything, live below your means.
Definitely.
That way you can save. One thing I never understood, and this is, everyone should listen to this because a lot of people think especially, I'm not going to get political, but a lot of people thought, 2, 3 years ago, our economy was the best it ever was. And that is simply not the case, because you have to look at specific things from first person principle, meaning is what is fundamental truths. So if you look at interest rates for one reason, and obviously there's more complexity than what I'm about to say, I'm just going at it very, very simplistically. But with interest rates, you want to raise interest rates when the economy is great, because interest rates, when you raise them, it encourages savings and it allows you to pay back the debt that you owe, right? And if we owe 25, 30 trillion in debt, whatever it is, you want to raise interest rates so you can start paying that debt, so we stop spending so much, right? So in good times, when the economy is great, you raise interest rates. In bad times, you lower interest rates, because it helps create money by taking away people from, saving, and it allows them to spend a little bit. It basically allows, in short, people to have more money when they need it. Okay. So if you look into I personally, I like Trump. Okay. But one thing I didn't like about what he was saying, he's like, our economy is the best it's ever been, but he was pushing for lower interest rates. That didn't make sense. This was part of the reason why I knew 3 or 4 years ago we were in big, big trouble, and just so happened we had a pandemic that we could blame everything on for our financial mishaps. But that's for another day. Regardless, I don't even know how I started this conversation. What were we talking about? I'm sorry.
Well, we're talking about the eviction moratorium, and I think what you just said about the about the interest rates, higher interest rates being a signal of a stronger economy, that's so true. And it's interesting also, your mention of the pandemic. I mean, nobody, well, I wouldn't say nobody saw that coming. There may have been some people behind the scenes that saw it coming, but the majority of people didn't see it coming. And again, that was just the thing that was blamed for all of this. But you're right. I think the economy was on this path, and obviously it's still on this path. I don't know. I think we're still going to see some lower lows. I don't know if speaking of that, you're probably not a homeowner yet, are you?
Well, I choose to rent, by choice. I definitely could if I wanted to. I have so much of my money in different places right now, because I just don't know what's going on. I hate cash, but I have cash. Gold and silver is frustrating right now, because when Warren Buffett called it a rock because it doesn't move, it's acting like that right now. And if anything, it's going the wrong direction than what it should be intuitively, right? Because the dollar is gaining strength off of, faulty measures. So, I have a little bit of metals. I have a little bit of cash. I have other collectible stuff. I have watches. I also have bills, okay, because I'm a student.
Yeah.
And the cost of living is pretty high where I live. And, and I have money in stocks, and stocks scares me right now. I had a question here I was looking at. It was about ETFs, and I'm trying to find it quick. So Brad Allen says, at Hybrid, I'm about to begin investing in ETFs here in OZ. I believe that's Australia, right?
Yeah, Australia.
I'm looking at Vanguard Total US Stock ETFs and all world EX US ETFs. Is that a good start? I think Vanguard is pretty good. Investing in like the total stock market. I know a lot of wealthy people personally that have money in Vanguard funds. Blackstone is another big one. I just think if you don't have your position set already, it'd be hard for me to say, again, for entertainment purposes, to start a position today. Could you make money? Absolutely. But the risk is extremely high for the reward that you're going to get. I think there's a lot more high, or I should say even medium term risks, if you look at if you have any type of logic on what's happening, with extremely high reward right now. Things like shorting the S&P 500, because, and I'm not telling you to do that by any means, but like things like that, I think if you're going to put your money in overall stocks and ETFs, I would have a couple, shorts and positions in like the S&P, or have a couple call options in like the UVXY or the SQQQ, which are inverses to the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, because based on just technicals alone, they have at least a 10% correction coming. But again, in an irrational market where Fed has complete control of everything by just printing money aimlessly and creating situations out of thin air, anything can happen, so there's just way too many confounding variables at play. So my biggest advice, or for entertainment purposes, would be to just diversify, have a little bit of money in the market, have a little bit of money in intangible assets, have cash, have metals. Gold and silver is always good. Look at a gold chart on the 100-year. It's insane. An interesting fact about this, and sorry if I'm talking too much, but if you had an ounce of gold in 1920, it'd be worth about $20. Or you could have said, I want to keep that $20 bill and keep it and put it in a safe. Well, in 1920, a $20 bill probably could have got you a lot of stuff. I don't know exactly what, but it could have got you a lot of stuff. $20 was a lot of money in 1920. So you had two options: have the 1 ounce of gold or have the $20 bill, and you get to put it in a safe. If you would have took the $20 bill and opened it today, what does it buy you? 3 gallons of gas? Now, what does a 1 ounce coin buy you? And in my opinion, the price is manipulated, but it's still almost $2,000 with premiums. See where I'm getting at? Obviously, it fluctuates over time, and there's better investments out there. Gold and silver is not really, buying the metals is not really an investment. It's more so keeping your money safe. So it's more of a savings account, is what I like to say. It may go up over time if you time it right, for sure. Right?
Yeah, and Hybrid Life, to kind of dumb down what you just said, and that was a great visual. But the $20 bill versus the 1 ounce of gold, a long time ago. For the viewers out there that may not be, and again, this is for entertainment purposes only as well. This is not a recommendation to buy or sell a security or precious metals or whatever. But the way Hybrid Life said it was very, very eloquent. And just to kind of piggyback off of what he said, it's one of those deals where if you have, let's just say you're sitting on cash. If you're in a fortunate situation where you're sitting on cash, actually you're probably not in a fortunate situation, because you're sitting on a potentially depreciating asset, just like the visual that Hybrid Life just provided. So if you're sitting on something, if you look at the charts, again, if you're sitting on something, might it be better to sit on something that might appreciate versus continue to go down in value? I mean, would you rather have a couple of value meals from your fast food joint, or would you rather potentially have possibly a few $1,000s if you converted that that physical precious metal into the dollars again? And speaking of that, we Hybrid Life, we just had a few more. Actually, got a lot of questions. We'll want to go through all of these, but I wanted to get your thoughts. You had mentioned ETFs, exchange traded funds, for entertainment purposes only, of course. What are your thoughts about Reits, real estate investment trust?
Gosh, real estate is so tricky right now. It's so tricky. I think it's going to correct, personally. Especially because this moratorium is getting lifted with rent. I just don't know. Real estate is the one thing that I just don't have a lot of, I would at least say, confidence in speaking about it, because I don't look at it as much as other things, because I don't understand the market. I'm not in the market, so I don't understand how prices are so inflated. I get it as a supply and demand issue, but I don't understand how people are signing that mortgage that make $50,000 a year between the male and the female, and they're buying a $500,000 house with rising gas prices, with rising grocery prices, with rising natural gas prices. Natural gas, what heats your house, has gone from $1.70 in the beginning of the year to $6. It's insane, and it's only going to go higher. All these commodities are going to go higher. So in my opinion, intuitively, I like to think, okay, if this keeps on going and people keep buying these inflated market houses, they're going to come to a decision one day, and people look at it the wrong way. They're saying, oh, well, I only have a 3%, fixed interest rate, so I'm fine. This is different than the 2008 crash, because a lot of times there was a variable interest rate, and when that interest rate hit, they're paying 50%, even 100% of what their home was worth. So now they're like, okay, well, 3.5%, I'll be fine. But they don't understand the cost of living is going to go up so much higher as well. You have to ask yourself, are you going to pay for groceries and gas and heat for your house? Or are you going to pay your mortgage? That's what I think is coming.
Yeah, and that's dead on. And I mean, right now I'm locked in, and again, I wouldn't use an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage, but I'm locked in. I refinanced it at it was near historic lows. It was like a 2.5 30-year fix. So, as a situation like you just illustrated, I mean, I could have gone out and I could have like, whoa, man, the interest rates are so low. I can go out and, get something on the water, waterfront property, this, that, or the other, or I can stay in the, somewhat modest home that I'm in now and anticipate, like you were saying, the continued, I mean, you can look back a few months, you can look back a few weeks, a few years, and just a silly illustration, but just a daily routine of picking up, maybe you go to a little place and get breakfast. What was once $4 for your combo meal is probably now $8 or $9. And that's just food. I mean, that's just a, to-go meal, not to mention the gas, not to mention the utilities, not to mention everything's going up, even toilet paper, paper towels, dishwasher tabs, laundry detergent. And people don't see they don't see the big picture. They just see the number. It's like, okay, they see the number. It's like, okay, well, this is so cheap. They look at the payment, the monthly payment, and they assume they can afford it. And that's a false assumption. I mean, the monthly payment doesn't mean that someone can afford it. It just means that, temporarily, however long the market conditions may allow, they may be able to sustain that enhanced lifestyle. But when and if inflation gets to them, then they're going to have to exit. They're going to have to exit that, in this case, that nicer home that they bought because they thought they could afford it. But then when they try to exit, what they may have financed let's say a $500,000 home, then because of the market, that home may only be selling for $325,000, $350,000. I mean, you never know. So, they may really put themselves in a hole.
Right. And buying a house, you have to furnish the house, right?
Yeah.
You have to pay for all of these things that come with the house that people do not think about with a rational mind when they're buying this inflated house. You don't see wages rise as much as you do with housing prices and goods. So, if your wages are rising 30%, just like the market, then okay, fine, maybe I can say, okay, good for you, whatever. But if your wages are relatively the same, but everything else is going 30-40% up in price, and just because the banks are saying they're approving you for something does not mean that you can afford it. Right. It's so easy to sign on something and saying, hey, I must be able to afford this because the bank said I could at this low of an interest rate, so I must be able to. That does not mean you can afford it. And this is one of the, so in 2008 we had a mortgage crisis. Well, now we have a credit card crisis, we have an auto loan crisis, we have a manufacturing crisis, we have a sovereign debt crisis, we have a currency crisis, and we have a pandemic. And then we have a student loan crisis. And I'm probably missing 50 other things. There's so many crises here that are happening that we cannot control. The only way to mitigate this from the balloon popping is to print more money. So it's the most indirect way of socialism that I've ever seen. And the majority of people don't get it. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, it irritates me beyond belief because people are like, oh, well, we're just, they don't, I mean, this will really, and I'll avoid the political tangent because I know we've got viewers on both sides of the fence and I respect that, but it's just, it's frustrating to see people jumping to assumptions. Oh, well, this is what I saw in the news, or this is what, I should feel this way or whatever, and they do things without thinking about it. I mean, there's so many things that people are doing now. They don't, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but it seems like a large percentage of the population will trust whatever the government throws their way and not question it. I guess that's the best way to put it. We've got a question from CS Law and Funds. CS Law and Funds says, unfortunately, you can't force people to spend. Recently, savings were recorded higher than ever. This was due to stimulus and concerns about economic future. He also says, I'm assuming it's a he, it may be a she. Recently, we see people maxing credit cards out again. This is because stimulus has ended. And then he also says people running to market to avoid inflation, and there's no point keeping money in banks for 0.001% interest on savings. And then we've got Philippine Scenes. Hello, Philippine Scenes. Any advice on living in the Caribbean? We were thinking about St. Kitts, not St. Kitts or that. Philippine Scenes, are you two guessing there might be a crisis again with regards to housing in the U.S.? What are your thoughts?
So let me start with CS Law and Funds. So he says you should tell people how interest rates on mortgages work. Well, I think with that, I think a lot of people are surprised with. So if you get a 3.5% interest rate on a 30-year mortgage on a $500,000 house, it's not 3.5% of $500,000 what you're paying. I know a lot of my friends didn't understand this. They thought that over 30 years, they'd only be paying 3.5% of that $500,000. So it seemed like a hell of a deal. But if you take a mortgage loan calculator, I think 3.5% interest over 30 years on a $500,000 house, and I'm just guessing here, probably comes up to around $725,000. So you're paying $225,000 in interest over 30 years. And if you're buying in a high market, then maybe the housing market goes down in the next 10 years. So, I mean, you have to understand things like that. I don't know if that's what he meant by that question. I think that's what he meant. Because I know a lot of people are confused by that.
Well, and the other thing is too, and again, it's, as always, it's for entertainment purposes only, but some people don't realize that you can pay more than the minimum monthly payment for a mortgage. Right.
But let's be real. A lot of people who are buying these houses that can't afford them are definitely not going to be like someone like you or me that wants to get in front of the debt. What the Fed is doing right now, they're one step ahead of the sheriff. But the problem is that they're in tandem with the sheriff. They are the sheriff almost. So they're doing whatever they want and giving out these loans. They're working with the hedge funds. They're working with the banks, Freddie and Fannie. Again, entertainment purposes. But yeah, it's crazy right now with this whole mortgage situation and real estate. I think if you bought your houses 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you guys are probably happier than ever because you got into it for a low price and it's probably tripled in value. So
yeah, and actually I won't I'll kind of comment to that. I bought mine in early 2000, the only house I've ever bought. I'm still in it. And it has gone up. I mean, if I won't speak numbers, but if I sold it on today's market, I would have about 100% increase. And I refinanced it. I mean, obviously when I got it, the interest rate then was sky high, but I'm at, low, mid twos right now for 30-year fix. So, I mean, it feels good, but I would never, if I was first time home buyer, I would never buy this. I never would have bought this home within the past few months because number one, the asking price would be too high, even though the interest rate was super low. I would feel that I would potentially be overpaying for something, even though I had that low interest rate.
Here's the issue, though. Rent is so high that it's almost cheaper to sign a mortgage on a monthly payment than to rent the same house. Because let's say that this house that you buy on mortgage would be $350,000. Let's just say low-end house where I live is about $350,000. It just shows you how crazy it is. That's a low end house.
That is crazy.
350,000. I'd say an average house where I'm at is probably like 700,000. 600 to 700,000 is just a normal home. Ridiculous, right?
How many square feet
now,
approximately?
Yeah, exactly. Family of four.
About how many? Like 2,000 square feet or?
Yeah, 2,500, 2,800 square feet. You know, quarter acre grass, whatever. It's nuts. So to rent that house, it might cost you $2,300 a month for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. To buy the house and your mortgage payment might only be $1,400. You know what I'm saying? So then a lot of these people are like, I'm just gonna, interest rates are low, I'm just gonna buy these houses. So a lot of people would rather buy right now just because even townhouses that were $150,000 in 2011, 2012 are now $300,000 for townhouses. No, normal Joe Schmo townhouse is $300,000 and rent is $2,000 a month, $2,100 a month. Plus, I don't know who pays the association fee, if it's the owner or the renter, but plus you have an association fee with a lot of these townhouses. So it really is just ridiculous.
Yeah. And people, to your point, I mean, it's like, well, why should I lease when I can buy? Then they finance it, and then the market tumbles, and what was temporarily on the ask for 300,000 is then back down to maybe 220,000, and then they try to exit. And it's, I mean, these are weird times, man. These are super weird times. It's, I don't know. I mean, we're in a lower rent area. One of the places where I go, houses that were, just a basic 1,500 square foot house that was $30,000-$40,000. Now those houses are $95,000-$120,000. I mean, it's just sickening how everything's, it's never seen this in my lifetime.
Yeah. And then you have to ask yourself, when is it going to stop? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the, are these bargain prices now? That's always in the back of my mind.
Yeah. I mean, if you're on the boat of the inflationists, so if you think the dollar is really going to go down in value, which intuitively it should, the more money supply out there in creation, that's inflation. They changed that definition, I think in the 70s, but the original definition of inflation was the increase in money supply. So let's think about this very logically, very simplistically. If you take something and create more of it, it's less rare, right? So by default, it's less valuable. Because think of it, if you had a Rolex Submariner, what makes the prices so high is because you cannot get them at retail. The demand is so much higher than supply, and Rolex is not supplying the demand. So the gray market shoots up the prices. Now, let's say that Rolex said, we're going to start building a factory in every state. Let's just not even say that. Let's say 10 factories in every state. And now we're going to sell our Submariners at Target. We're going to sell them at Walmart. We're going to sell them at Nordstrom. We're going to sell them at all these places. Would you still pay? Now, let's say that they 1,000x'd their amount of Submariners in supply. Would you still pay $12,000 for a Submariner?
Well, you couldn't, because, I mean, if you did, inevitably the value of that, well, the perceived value, number one, because of the retail establishments that were selling it, right now they're under an authorized dealer network, so it adds that layer of exclusivity. I can't say that word, exclusivity. But now they're just selling them in your average chain stores, but also the quantity of production is increased. So you're dealing with an item that, number one, historically was only sold in authorized dealer networks, not talking about the gray market. But now you've got something, there's more units created, and it's just, they've cheapened up their brand image by selling it outside of their authorized dealer network. But I mean, I guess that those chain stores could at that point be authorized dealers, but it's just not, when I go to Walmart and buy my beef jerky and my can of soup, I don't associate that with a high-end wristwatch purchase,
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, If there's so much more of something, it's going to decrease in value just because there's so much of it out there. That's basic economics. The more you create of something, the less price it will be. So oddly enough, the more money they print, the dollar gets even stronger. I mean, it's the biggest Ponzi scheme I have ever seen in my life. Again, opinions. This is for entertainment purposes, but that doesn't change the fact that we are under the biggest Ponzi scheme ever. I mean, when Bernie Madoff had all his clients, he didn't tell people it was a Ponzi scheme, or else he wouldn't have had all these clients, right? You only find out it's a Ponzi scheme when it collapses. Yet for some reason, by default, and this is over time through, so many different psychological models, that the government has brainwashed people into thinking that the government is always in your best interest, and everything they do or say is not erroneous and completely true, not nefarious and completely, for your benefit. But if you use that little tool called logic, things start to contradict each other, so not saying one way or the other, but you can kind of see where I'm getting at, right?
I do, and I'm going to throw something your way that's completely off the cuff, and again, it's not a medical advice question, but it's just for entertainment purposes only. Have you taken a coronavirus vaccine?
No, but soon I'll have to.
Okay, that's what
soon.
Okay.
I was offered it at my school last December. Is when I was able to get it, way before anyone else, obviously because of what I was in school for and this, that, and the third. I just stopped. I just never answered my emails, and they never made it mandatory. Now they're going to make it mandatory, and I think I have to get it by January. So, interesting story. Again, this is just my own opinion. I've been close to getting it like 3 or 4 different times. So the last time I went to go, I actually got all the way into the pharmacy. I went to a pharmacy to go get this shot. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't get it or should get it. I can't give that type of advice online.
Right. Understandable.
But this was my story. I'm going in, about to get the shot. There's specific things called pericarditis and myocarditis. Basically, in short, in layman's terms, it's inflammation around the heart. So a lot of times liquid goes around the membrane of the heart. Obviously, it could be a big deal. I know a lot of people die from myocarditis or pericarditis. Usually, you hear it being like infectious, so viral. So it makes sense why people are starting to develop this with a viral vaccine, because it has the virus in it. And usually myocarditis is viral. A lot of times it's drug related too. So you'll see a lot of kids that do like, cocaine or whatever the case may be. Sometimes they develop this, more so arrhythmias than that. But so anyway, I was reading with the 2 big vaccine companies, which you guys can, determine what those are, develop or give symptoms of myocarditis and pericarditis in males age 12 to 29 predominantly. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, I fall into that age group. And, me being in the medical field, I have a little bit of hypochondrianism just from learning and seeing. Like, for the longest time, I was following a cancer surgeon around. One of my mentors, she's a thoracic surgeon. And I would walk into clinic and there'd be, kids my age and younger about to go under the knife, probably 80 to 90% chance their life outcome is less than a year. And, talking to these guys and seeing what they're going through. I mean, it's crazy. So it's hard to sleep at night sometimes. Like, what if this happens to me? So the second I have sharp pain in my lungs, or the second I have, this weird feeling, I start to think, what if it's me? Because I've seen in real life all these cases. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it is. That's a very interesting perspective, because obviously I'm not part of the medical community at all, and I know all your comments were for entertainment purposes only. But the thoughts that I've had about it, and I haven't taken it. The thoughts that I've had were, well, I exercise every day. Yeah, I am older. I'm a little bit overweight, but I I can't convince myself to put anything in my body. It's kind of like the analogy that I've used with friends of mine. I've got a lot of friends and family that have taken it, and that was their decision. They were happy. But the analogy I've used, and this is kind of extreme, but okay, I'm walking through a big city, and it's late at night, and I walk around the corner, and somebody comes up to me, taps me on the shoulder, hey man, come over here, look at this. And they try to shoot something up in my arm. I'm like, no, thank you. I don't need that. I don't know what it is. But not only do I not know what it is, but the bigger question that I have is, do I need this? I mean, what is, the survivability rate, this, that, and the other? Am I putting something questionable into my body that I can't just take out? It's not like a pair of shoes. I can, toss them off and, I don't like these. They're too slick. I want something with better grip, better traction. It's something that's permanent. And that's what's kept me, that's what has caused me to stray away from it. Even though I've gotten a lot of pressure from a lot of people to do it, but I've also got a lot of people that are on the same, have the same school of thought that I have about it. So anyway, we don't have to talk about this because I know it's kind of off of our stocks, but we do have a question from Trevor, and that is, what are your thoughts on Dog eCoin, DOG eCoin?
Yeah, so when it comes to crypto, I have a lot of friends in the crypto space, and of course they always screenshot me, oh, crypto's up 20% today, or I'm up so much money, and they know that it irks me when they tell me that. So I personally don't think crypto is necessarily something that's going to work long term, or at least I should say I didn't. But I think short term or midterm, anything that is not the dollar is probably better than the dollar. But I could be wrong on that. The way that holding the dollar might win. So I don't understand crypto as much as a lot of people. I know I understand it is effective and how it can be really effective with transacting and stuff like that. The only thing I don't necessarily get, or why people think it's going to be suffice, is because it's not backed by anything. And people always say, oh, well, there's a limited amount of it and this and that, but look at all of the crypto coins there are, and think of it in a situation, anything ever. When there was the first of something, was it ever the biggest thing for the longest time? Like, absolutely not. So the first car company, what was the first car company ever? I have no idea.
I don't know. Was that a Ford or it may have been Ford, actually.
All right. Well, then maybe that was a bad example. But so like, if you look at like social media, so like MySpace isn't even around anymore. So like, I mean, these are bad examples. I don't really understand crypto that much, but here's my thoughts of why I don't like it. I think that the fundamental reason why our currency is failing is because it's not backed by anything. So we're able to print it into existence. Things need to be backed by physical assets. Like, that's why gold has worked for so long. And the reason why I am a gold bug is because logically it makes sense. Intuitively it makes sense at a fundamental level. It's not like somebody's paying me to say, I love gold, everyone should have gold. It's like, no, it makes the most sense to me because of all of these variables. That's why I like it. I chose to after learning about something. The majority of people that are investing in these cryptos have no idea how it works. It's just an online gambling ring. And it's so leveraged that the second that it falls significantly, they're going to be margin coin swings 10%, 20% in a day or in a few days is because of leverage. So just imagine us going to a Bitcoin currency and you buying groceries with your Bitcoin. Okay. You just paid $300 for your groceries in Bitcoin. And then you walk out of the grocery store and Bitcoin dropped by 10%. Well, then you'd be like, wow, I just got a good deal on these groceries. Or no, that'd be the opposite. You'd be like, wow, I just lost a ton of money and I overpaid for these groceries. Right.
Yeah.
But on the opposite hand, it would be, wow, I just made a lot of money. But the grocer would be like, wow, I just gave these groceries away for way less than I should have. So it would never work. You can't have something that unstable. First of all, currency needs to be stable. that's one flaw I don't like about it. And another thing is that it's not backed by anything. You can't. I get how it's decentralized. That's a kind of a good aspect, but we live in a country that has a government, and they can regulate the crap out of it if they want to, and they could end it. Basically, the rate that we're going, socialism. I don't know how good Bitcoin is going to survive in a socialistic environment, but I guess we'll see. China's banning it. Did you see that? China came out last week and banned crypto.
Yeah, China banned crypto, and then also just from and again, I know we've prefaced this over and over, but for entertainment purposes only. But I'd acquired some it wasn't Bitcoin, it was Dash. And this is a true story. So I got, it was just a few $100. Somebody sent me a transaction. I had the Dash wallet or whatever on my iPhone. And I sat on it for a few years, and I wanted to pull it out because it actually had gone up significantly, and I didn't have any confidence in being able to retrieve those funds. And sure enough, because I had purchased from the time that I received that Dash transaction, and I did write down the security code and the passphrase and all of that that's required to access the digital wallet. Even though I had done all of that, when I converted to my new phone, I didn't think, oh, well, this crypto is tied to the other phone. To retrieve it, I've got to enter these codes. But even after entering those codes, after launching Dash on my new iPhone, even after entering the codes that I'd snapshot, I'd printed off, put in the safe, I had it secure. It was only a few $100. But after, at that time, it had turned from a few hundred into, I think it was over, it was not a lot of money. It was over $1,000 or something like that. But the case in point is that I could not access those funds because I didn't have the code, because something as simple as upgrading an iPhone. And, that really hit home with me. And I know a lot of people that have gotten big into crypto, and a lot of people have done really well, but just the perceived inability to exit, the perceived inability to monitor. Even with penny stocks, I can look at level 2 quotes. I can look at the market makers on both sides of the fence. I can develop a reasonable expectation for what I might be able to exit for, or what I might be able to add more shares for. Unless something highly volatile occurs. With crypto, I don't have that visibility. I'm strongly against crypto. I support people that are for it, but I think there's a lot of people, to your point, that are pro crypto, and they're kind of looking at it as gambling. I think that hard assets are hard to beat. When you're dealing with a tangible asset like physical gold, physical silver, that's stuff that unless there's a catastrophic event, is probably still going to exist. And where you store it in your bank, wherever you store it, that's none of anybody's business. But wherever you store it, when you go to collect it, unless something catastrophic has occurred, that tangible asset, that physical gold, that physical silver is probably still going to be there. And I think that's a container of wealth, unlike crypto, which is just potentially. And the other question I have about crypto, even if the regulations don't become heightened, what could happen? How could that be manipulated? We didn't develop the cryptocurrency network. Does somebody have a master plan that they're going to roll out in 5 years or whatever time frame and just get all of that money for themselves? What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. First of all, what if someone shut down our electric grid? What are you going to do? The Bitcoin is not tangible. That's what I don't like. Like with physical monetary assets, if it's cash that's backed by gold, if it's silver, you have it. It's there. It's an off-grid savings account. If it's online in any way, it is not only yours. It's, first of all, it's hackable. How often do you hear of people hacking crypto? I've heard, just like your last example, people not being able to log into their phones, losing their password. My buddy just lost like 5 or 10K in Ethereum because he broke his phone. Just kind of, I think, same example you had. Well, he broke his phone, got a new one, and forgot his password. And that was 10 grand in Ethereum when Ethereum was like $700. I think now it's 3,500. So let's do the math there.
Yeah, he doesn't want to watch that ticker symbol anymore, or whatever you call it for Bitcoin.
Well, he bought more.
Yeah.
But he's buying at these highs. And then I'll text him when it's down 20%. And I'll be like, see, you should have got out. Based on the technical chart, it says once Bitcoin hit 52,000, it's going to be volatile, but it's going to go back to $18,000 to $20,000 level and then probably go back up significantly. So again, I think a lot of these people that are buying crypto are buying it as traders. They're just like penny stocks, just like these meme stocks. Like, really, is AMC worth how many billions? Probably not. It's just a legal gambling ring. So same with GameStop. GameStop has one of the worst business models ever. In my opinion, their brick and mortar stores should be out of business already. If not, they're barely hanging on. But yet their stock's at $180 a share, and I don't even want to look at their market cap, but I'm sure it's in the multi-billions.
Well, allegedly, GameStop is the people that are pro GameStop. They're saying, oh, well, they're converting to more of a digital business versus brick and mortar, buying a physical CD or, well, I mean, in this case, it's Blu-ray, I guess. So how the heck are they going to compete with the first party Xbox online service where you download games, PlayStation Network where you download games? How is a third party going to compete with that? Virtually. I mean, I don't get it. And actually, it's funny. I don't know if you've seen this, and you probably didn't because I didn't really say a lot about it, but I had a video that I posted in 2011. It was entitled, "What Does Seller Boxed Mean? Stock Market Terminology." And I'll toss a link out here in the video chat. But basically what happened, and this was 9/12 of 2011 when I posted this, and I received a flood of views on the 12th of this year, 12th of 2021. And what had happened, this video that I just linked in the chat, people had picked up, the GameStop stock enthusiast. They picked it up and they said, I predicted the future. They were saying that this video is, in their minds, is exactly what happened with GameStop. And I had posted this video in 2011. And it was a big forum post on Reddit. I mean, this video went through the roof, man. And it's just, there's so much, and obviously that's not why I filmed that video. That was because I was talking about penny stocks, but it's just funny how a lot of people assume that I somehow predicted the future with that. And that had nothing to do with GameStop. That was just a video pertaining to penny stocks in general. But how people will take something and try to turn it into the truth. And it's I don't know, man. I think what we need to do, we need to get together. We need to do another live show because I'm gonna have to hop off. We're an hour and 8 minutes into this, and this has been awesome, by the way. And do we want to read a few more questions before we hop off?
I'll just quickly answer a couple, just very quickly, couple minutes.
Okay.
So first of all, Trevor Don says IRIX coin for the moon. So what he's saying is develop your own IRIX coin, and you'll probably be making millions of dollars on it because that's just what happens. So another one, crypto isn't currency, it's an asset like gold. Plus, if you buy something using crypto, that is a taxable event. But gold is physical, you can hold it. That's what I'm saying. I like the blockchain, but if you had no access to your phone or your computer, let's say that the grid shut off for some reason, which it is an actual threat, the grid shuts off, how are you going to trade goods? And if you think this isn't a real thing, it definitely is a real threat.
EMP.
Right? It's a very real threat. I mean, that's what North Korea was threatening us to do. They would do against us, just a few years ago. All these things with technology, it's very new. It's in the very incipient stage of all this stuff. There's going to be a lot of mistakes that we make. And, personally, I think that the reason why gold and silver has been a currency for so long is because it's the best thing that works. Of course, we're always by nature going to find new things that are better, but, I haven't seen anything yet that's like that. Polsky says, I don't hate gold, silver, but when was the last time someone traded gold or silver for a good or service? LOL. So the reason why people don't do that is because people trust the dollar. I mean, I could ask the same thing. Why are people using monopoly money? That's nothing. That's just a piece of paper backed by the government for trading, for buying or using services. It's because the government has brainwashed people into thinking that that's actually worth something. It's backed by nothing. So you have to think about that. The only reason why someone takes your monopoly money is because another person accepted it because he was brainwashed just like someone else. That's the whole Ponzi scheme we're under. And again, this is for entertainment purposes only. You can't do anything with dollars besides watch it burn. You know, paper has no utility to it. Assets from the longest time, if you study history, have tons of utility. That's why gold served as such a good currency for the longest time, even in the Bible. You know, people used it. It's a semiconductor. It conducts electricity. It's used in computers. It's used in technology. It's used as jewelry. It looks great. You can hug it at night. The collectability, they make it in coins. They make it in numismatic value. There's so many things you can do with gold. And based on its elemental factors is that if you melt it, whatever you do with it, it will never lose its compounds, the compounds that are in gold. I'm saying that wrong. It's been a long time since I've taken chemistry, but I know gold will always be there in its physical base form. There's not, it will never deteriorate like silver does. It oxidizes, but gold I don't think does. It's just very malleable.
And that's kind of why I think I'm more comfortable with silver than gold, because to your point, you know, gold is often repurposed, for lack of a better technical word, whereas silver is consumed and it's gone forever. And the industrial application of, you know, the industrial use of silver is quite significant. And I mean, there's only so much silver available. So,
right.
You know, will you or I experience the silver spike in our lifetime, the huge spike? Probably not. But will the next generation? It'll probably be a lot more significant.
I think we may see a decent spike in the next year in silver.
I thought we would have seen that this year.
Again, that's why I said May.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've been saying this for like 2 years now, and it's getting pretty frustrating because the reason is that all these people keep believing the Fed. But if you have any logic and intuition on lying, I mean, how can you believe what the Fed is saying? If the Fed said that the sky was black and on a sunny day, people would believe them with the type of logic that they're believing the Fed with. You know, it doesn't make any sense.
And Hybrid Life, I tell you what, this has been tremendous. We got so many people in the audience. We got Cal C that joined in. Thanks again for joining in, Cal C. I think what we need to do, let's try to. I know you're crazy busy with your professional stuff. Let me know when you've got some time. Let's try to get another live show and let's continue this conversation. How does that sound?
For sure. And then Polsky, I'll get back to you. Obviously, I don't think only stores are going to accept gold bars. I'm just using gold tangibility as an example. But anyway, yeah, let's continue this conversation later. Obviously, thanks for having me on, and I'm gonna have more videos on my YouTube channel soon. I just need to get the right equipment, so I'll do that soon.
And speaking of that, this is Hybrid Life. So check out, subscribe, and ring the bell for Hybrid Life's YouTube channel. Very brilliant individual. It's an honor to have him on this channel because this is the type of content that it's unique, and I really appreciate it. So Hybrid Life, thanks for tuning in. You've got my contact info. Stay in touch. Let me know when you might have some time, and I'll flex with your schedule. And we can make something work out.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it, and thanks for everybody watching today and asking questions.
Oh yeah, definitely. Thanks everyone. This was a lot of fun, and y'all have a great evening.